Hello everyone, this is Jesse with the Piranha Kitchen, and today we're going to make some cashew butter. And if you've ever had cashew butter, you likely know how delicious it is. And you also probably know how expensive it is. This little container is around $8. And the other day I was in the store and a larger jar was about $14 and it wasn't even organic. So, I'm going to show you how simple it is to make it on your own. All you need is a food processor. And you need some cashews. Another thing is, I was looking at the different nut butters and they have these ones in a little jar and they were these infused nut butters and they were another extra $4 because they had some cinnamon or some vanilla in it. And that's just overpriced, and so I'm going to show you how to do that as well. This process is how you can make any nut butter. So if you experiment with it and continue doing it, making any nut butter you want, nut or seed butter, it'll become super easy. And I'm going to use 2 cups of cashews, organic cashews that I soaked and then dehydrated. You don't have to do that process. It is one thing to be aware of. Cashews are not raw, and there are some people in the raw community who are extremely adamant about only eating raw, and to get the cashew nut out, it's surrounded by this meaty protective covering that actually has some caustic oils in it, so they have to steam it to remove it, and then they rinse it. So the steaming is actually a temperature that's above what is technically what you can have for raw. So they're not raw, but they're still very delicious and nutritious. They're full of monounsaturated fat, which is a very heart-healthy fat. Multiple studies have shown that diets high in monounsaturated fats have a significant reduce in heart disease and heart attacks. And they're a really great nut for raw desserts or raw sauces because they're so creamy. And you don't need to soak them too long to get that. I use cashews a lot in my cheeses. So I have 2 cups, and then I'm going to use a little bit of hemp seeds because hemp seeds are just fantastic. They're extremely nutritious, very high in protein. They have a complete amino acid profile, so they are a complete protein. They're very digestible, they're very bioavailable, and really good for you. And I'm just going to add about a 1/4 cup because I've had hemp seed butter before and it's not super delicious. It can be a little on the bitter side, and it's because it's just full of lots of stuff. And this is just, the cashews are a fatty, creamy nut, so when you make a butter, it's just going to taste delicious. But adding a little bit in there is just going to add a bunch of amino acid and make it have more protein. And then I'm going to infuse it with some vanilla bean powder. And I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon. This is a 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm going to do 2 of those. And then some Ceylon cinnamon. This stuff is amazing if you get true cinnamon. Smells so good. I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of this. And then I like cayenne. You probably know that if you've watched a lot of these videos. I love spice, I love heat, I love adding heat to things that normally you wouldn't think would be spicy, and it just brings out the flavors a little bit more. You can omit this part if you're not into heat. And I'm just going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of that. And then a little tiny bit of salt. And then I'm going to put the lid on and just let it go. It's going to start to break down, get really fine, almost come to a flour-like consistency. You continue to let it go. Once it hits the flour-like texture, it's going to keep going and eventually start to clump. This process can take a few minutes, so just be patient. Not with me, I'll edit it out, but be patient when you're doing it. Now, there is sometimes where it starts to clump up and form on the side. So then I will just take a spatula and come around, and it's already starting to get a butter-like texture, but it looks like sand right now. It just looks like exactly like sand, the texture and the appearance of it. So now that I get it all back down with a blade, put the lid back on, turn it on. Now, another thing that I like to do is add a little bit of coconut oil into it, and that helps it start to clump up a little easier. Plus, it adds a lot of nutrition from the coconut oil, because coconut oil is extremely healthy, and just will add a little more flavor and depth to this butter. So I'm going to start with just a tablespoon. And that should help it stick together. So now it's getting to the point where it's clumping up more, and it'll kind of make these balls and form together more on one side, this is great, because then you know you're getting close to it actually being butter rather than just sand, because sometimes it doesn't stick together very well. So the coconut oil is helping out a lot. Now it's kind of looking more like a dough. Now I want to continue to watch it. It's getting closer and closer right now, because now it's starting to almost become one ball. There it goes. Now it's one ball, and it's coming around the food processor, and that's where I can stop. So now that all of the cashews and that little bit of coconut oil and the infusions have all come together into one ball, it's now butter. And that's what you wait for, is you wait until it starts to, first it'll turn into sand, and then it'll start to get a little clumpy, almost like mud, and then it'll start to get more all on one side, and then all of a sudden there will be this point where it just all comes together in one ball and it's going around the blade. And once you've gotten to that point, you have your delicious cashew butter. And then now you can see that there it is. And it's important to stop a little after that point. Once it's all in one ball and going around, you want to stop, because then if you keep going, you're going to over-process the oils, and it can get kind of oily and less buttery. And you definitely want to maintain the integrity of that buttery, really delicious quality. And then I'll just take a glass jar and scoop it out and store it in there. And now this is just going to be amazing on anything. You can have it on apple slices, banana. If you eat bread, you could have a cashew butter and jelly sandwich. You can put it in smoothies. It'll be delicious if you do like a banana and date and cashew butter and coconut milk or almond milk smoothie. And it's just great. I use it in sauces too. It would be delicious in a pad thai sauce or a dressing, like a spicy cashew butter dressing over black bean noodles. You can do a lot of good stuff with it. And if you get in the habit of making it, then you just don't have to buy it anymore. And what's great is you can buy organic nuts, and then you know everything that's in there. It wasn't processed in a plant that also processes dairy or gluten if you have sensitivities to either of those. And it's pretty quick. You just throw it in here and turn it on until it gets to the point where it clumps into a ball. You really don't have to do more than that. And just make sure if you do soak your nuts, like if you're making almond butter, I do soak almonds for sure, that you want them completely dry, because if there's any water still in the net when you process it into butter, it'll affect the consistency, and it also can go rancid faster because of that extra water that's in there. So you just want to make sure the nuts are really dry. And you can make amazing combinations. I've made a walnut pistachio, you can make pecan butter, you can, yeah, that's really all there is to it. So have fun with the things you add into it, and you can even add a little bit of honey to make it sweeter. So if you like the video, please like it. If you would like to share it, and please comment. And if you haven't subscribed to the Piranha Kitchen YouTube channel, subscribe, and thank you for watching.